All right, so today's topic we're going to talk about is alternate or alternative. I'm not sure if I'm doing that right. Maybe it's alternative. But, I think Word was trying to tell me earlier that I was supposed to say alternative, but I called it alternate, so just keep it at that. Somebody can tell me if I'm right or wrong. Alternative revenue sources. So I think this is Drake. This is how bad I am. I need my 15-year-old to tell me who I just made a meme of here. But anyway, little cutesy little meme for you. The big idea on alternative or alternate revenue sources is we think, we've been taught, we've been trained. One of the first things people ask me about is what's your billing rate? How do you set up your per diem rate? Is it a daily rate? Is it an hourly rate? It's rates. It's hourly. You think in that way. If you read, Gail Barrington's book, it's a great book. She talks all about it. She talks about the ethics of it. She talks a lot about things you want to avoid. At some point, we need to talk ethics, and I think if I could, I'd love to get Gail in here to talk about it because it's one of her favorite topics. It's not something that we think a lot about, but it's super important. But there are other ways that we can be making money beyond our hourly rates, and that's the big idea here. So getting beyond those hourly rates, it's probably 95% of what I do is technically, I don't hardly ever charge on an hourly rate. I estimate on an hourly rate. So I should make a little bit of clarification there. Usually people come to me and say, we'd like to write this grant, and it's going to go for 5 years. And what's it going to cost us per year? So I sit down with my hourly rate, and I look at my activities, and I estimate the amount of time it's going to take. And for clarification on that, I don't come back and say, well, last quarter I worked 72 hours and that times $125 equals this amount. I say from the very beginning, it's going to cost you $10,000 a year, and at $10,000 a year, I will bill you quarterly every 3 months, and I bill $2,500 every 3 months regardless of the amount of effort I put in. And that, surprisingly, is I thought I'd have to go with the original way with my clients. They don't want that. They really just want reliability. They want to know that you're going to charge them the same amount, and they know when those bills will come through, those invoices will come through, and I bill them that way. And so that is about, like I said, 95%, maybe even more, of what I do. But here's all the ideas I wish I could get it in place. And so we are actually in the process of writing up our personnel manual, and we started talking about the very first thing in our personnel manual is intellectual property. So it's kind of something that's germane to today. So one idea, subscriptions. I've been trying to get this going for a long period of time. One thing we do is we will provide data visualizations or data dashboards or any number of ways to interact with someone's data. And so we would like to get to the situation where we can pull data down from a state source, plug it into a system, and then update it on a regular basis, and they can pay us for it. So there's a lot of value to our clients in doing this, and it's at a certain point, we're putting a lot of time and effort into the front end, but it's not very difficult on the back end. So this is a great way to make a decent amount of money. So you might be doing this on a monthly, weekly, or an annual basis. I'm thinking on an annual basis for helping some of my education clients think critically about their operations. And so my big idea, I'm going to share it with everybody here. I don't think there's any secret to it, but it is kind of a clever idea, is because my school districts all give data to the state in the exact same way. They also can retrieve those data from the state in the exact same way. And I can go from one school district to the next, and there's 800 school districts in our state, or over 800. And I can do an analysis. We can pull down the same 5 data sets or whatever that they have access to. Now, if I go to their information systems, they're all different because they all have different information systems. But at some point, they have to conform their data so it works for the state. So my big idea here is putting them on a subscription basis. Actually, I take it back. I want to point out, I was thinking about software and routine updates. Subscriptions is something different. So I'm talking software and routine updates here. That's the big idea, is that we have a lot of costs up front and minimal costs on the back end. One thing you may need is to think about a specialist and somebody who can really get this rolling for you. It takes specialized skills. It's not necessarily evaluator skills. So I've been talking about software and routine updates. But subscriptions is a bit similar. Subscriptions are a way that you may be providing information. You may get people to sign up for your club, right? You may have a VIP thing. If you have something of value that you can share with a certain group of people, that may make sense. One idea I've had on this hasn't worked yet, but is to create a relationship with the Grant Professionals Association and really reaching out to the GPA group, that's the grant professionals, which are basically grant writers. Grant writers, they don't know evaluators exist. Some of them do, but you'd be surprised. I've gone to the GPA meeting a couple of times, and the GPA, people are like, oh my God, evaluation, they can't get enough of it. In fact, we put on a pre-conference workshop last year, and it was really terrible. I really just didn't think it went over very well. But everybody stayed the entire time. They took every last handout, made everything up, and I thought we did great based upon that. But the reality was, I just don't think the material was tight yet. It needed some work. But there is a pent-up demand for evaluation amongst grant professionals. So go out there, take my idea. I'm totally cool with it. But I think one of those ideas with subscriptions is if you can enlist people you can update them on a monthly basis or however long, and you can provide them with that information. You can bring people together for small conferences, but the key here is that they're paying you on a regular basis and you're able to generate revenue that way. And you probably are doing the same amount of work, whether you're doing it for one person or 5 people or 50 or 500 or 5,000. And so this is how subscriptions really work. So pricing it can be tricky, but you may want to just focus on what the value is to those individuals. And if you can find that sweet spot, you might be able to make quite a bit of money doing that. All right, software, I just talked about that one. Retainer, I have had this a couple of times. It's usually when somebody doesn't know what they want from you. They don't know how to estimate the amount of time, and you don't know how to estimate the amount of time, and they want to keep you around. They want you to be available. They want you to be able to work with them without a lot of notice and without having to go through contract basis. So some people will say, here's $10,000 for the year. I'm going to need work from you over that period of time, and you may or may not be working however many hours that equates to, but we'll set aside $10,000 for you regardless. I actually am planning to do this with my web development guy. We're going to have a lot of web work to be done soon, and so I said, it's actually one of my college roommates, and I said, you're one of my good friends, Chris. Can I put you in retainer? And basically, I'll just pay you to be my good friend and web developer. And he says, that sounds great. And honest truth is, I know I'm going to get the work out of him. And he kind of does it anyway, but it's just a way to kind of set aside the business side of things, and we can just focus on getting the work done. And at some point, we'll revisit and see if it made enough sense for me as the client to him. But I think this is another way that you could think about. So evaluability assessments, who knows how long it's going to take. And maybe you're just going to say, give me $10,000 up front or $5,000 or whatever number makes sense to you. So that's a way to think about this too. And you'll keep track of your time and your hourly, but at least you don't have to estimate ahead of time. So that's one idea. Let's see. What's the next one? Value-based fees. So this is Alan Weiss's, everything he writes about. He writes a lot about in all of his consulting books. But don't get Gail Barrington. I love her. She's a good friend. But man, if you want to talk about getting her on under her skin, she is not a big fan of value-based fees. Let me tell you a story. My father was a consultant. He was a consultant for a big consulting firm, and he left that firm and he went to work for himself. At first, he worked for somebody else, but it didn't work out. But he worked in the oil and gas industry. He was, and I forgive me because I know some of you guys have heard the story before. I seem to tell it a lot. But he's an accountant in the oil and gas industry, and his specific market niche or focus was oil and gas losses. I still do not know to this day what a CPA does to understand oil and gas losses. He didn't literally go out and find leaky oil in the field. He would go out to the field and he would look at their accounting books and he would understand how they were accounting for the oil and gas that was being shipped or retained, or whatever you do with oil and gas totally out of my element. But he could look at their spreadsheets, he could look at their books and understand it. And what he was able to do was help them with their oil and gas accounting, and he could save them quite literally millions of dollars for just hours of time. So he was able to charge $250 an hour for what he did, and people didn't blink at it. But the reality was, I think he was doing it the wrong way. He could have been thinking about how much he knew he could be saving people money, and then taking a fraction of that and thinking about, listen, I'm going to save you $2.5 million. If you give me, 5% of that, $125,000, I can help you do that. And so $125,000 to you and me is a lot of money, right? But to them, if you can save somebody 2.5, that's a great deal. So that's another way to think about value-based fees. The key here with value-based fees is you're thinking about what that value is to that client. You're not stopping to say, well, I'm only going to charge you $200 an hour or $100 an hour or something like that, when the reality is they don't care about your hourly rates. That's you're in your own head. Put yourself in your client's perspective and say, what is it that they need? And what am I doing for them? And this is one of those areas where if you have the ability to work with the right clients that have like clear definition on what their value is, and you're able to identify your value to them in real distinct dollars, you can get down to this value-based fees idea. So like I said, read any of Alan Weiss's books on this stuff. I love reading the quotes in here. Here's a career key from his Establishing Fees chapter. I love this. If you don't know what the competition is charging for similar services, I can guarantee that you're undercharging. You just gotta love this stuff. These books are full of that. I'm a fan of Alan Weiss. Let's see, what do we got next? Cost menu. So this actually is maybe still based upon fees, and it is an estimating technique, but it's something I wanted to include today because I'm not sure people are talking about this. Nicole Ballman, I've been told, does this. I went to her website just before this, and I couldn't find her cost menu, but she basically says, here's the 15 or 20 different things we can do, and she just takes items off this menu that she shares with her prospective clients, and she adds them together and says, here's what we're gonna be able to do, and she shares that with people in advance. And I thought that was kind of an interesting approach. Publications and speaking. This is where I try, and obviously what I'm doing today is speaking, right? And all of you guys owe me a lot of money. I'm just joking. I love doing this for free. But speaking can be lucrative, but not at AEA. When you think about it, AEA is actually a loss leader perspective. Loss leader meaning you're losing money by doing it, but you're probably putting yourself in a position to make a lot of money down the road. So Kylie Hutchinson has talked to me about this. A couple other people too. They speak at AEA for the sake of being able to say I spoke at AEA, and then they have that opportunity to do stuff on the side, and that helps promote them. So that is kind of a form of advertising for some of these people. I don't think Stephanie Evergreen or Ann Emery does pre-conference workshops anymore, mostly because it's just not worth their while, and they've kind of maybe grown beyond it. It's a lot of work, and to them, for that amount of work, getting paid $1,000 per day, which seems like a lot to me, is not a lot to them. I remember I was talking with Ann Emery, and I said, so I'm sure you get paid a little bit more than $1,000 a day, and she wouldn't say anything. She was very, very, very coy, but I was getting the sense that I was way out of her league in some ways. But you know what? They are the nicest people in the world, Stephanie and Ann and Kylie, and they love our association. But the truth is, they go outside of our association and make really big money with speaking. Publications and book sales. I had a professor who was my major professor with my dissertation, and he wrote the book for it was the book that they used as the textbook for most master's level classes for student affairs administration. And he said that he never really made that much money off it. But I mean, I think he probably made $20,000 every couple of years, which it's a decent amount of money for a faculty member, I'd say. And he couldn't. He says it wasn't life-changing for him, but that is also another form of underscoring your reputation or promoting yourself. Some people make a lot of money doing this stuff. I'm sure Alan Weiss has made a lot of money doing this. Gail Barrington, she loves doing it. She's probably made some bucks, I have no clue, but we always talk about her book. It's a way to just underscore who you are, I think. But I think the speaking in particular can be very lucrative, and I'm hoping I can get Susan Wolf to talk about this because I know she knows a bunch about this. And I'm sure a lot of you guys do too. I'd love to hear from you. Where are we at next? Okay, I have 5.5 suggestions for alternative. See, I put alternative here, where I put alternate earlier. So we'll call it both. First idea, focus on what you do well. So I've talked in earlier sessions about your niche, right? Make sure you're focusing in on your niche and what is something is your core competence, right? Understand who you're working with. Again, back to your niche. If you think about the way I talk about the niche, you want to focus on what you do well and where there's an opportunity for you to do well. Obviously, the third piece to that is making sure you do something that you enjoy, which kind of helps with number one, that you are doing it well. Think about your value. Particularly think about your value to your clients. What is this value providing them? When you can put it in very specific dollars, when possible, do it, and that'll give you an opportunity to think about what you should receive in compensation for the services you're providing. A lot of us are in the social service world. I love it. I wouldn't change it. And it's difficult for me to demonstrate what my value is to my clients. And then I have to kind of fall back on my hourly rates. But if you can be very specific about what your value is to them, and how, like my father, can help in an oil and gas industry save $2.5 million, he can make a case for making 5% of that, which is a lot of money. Freemiums. Okay, so when we're talking about some of these subscriptions or providing a service where it can be replicated fairly quickly, like that database idea, the interactive dashboard idea, often makes sense to give them a free version of it so that they can try it. It's the taste test. This is just like going to the mall and you're walking around there. Remember Sparrow? First of all, do you remember when we went to the mall? It was a while ago, wasn't it? But when you would go to the mall and you'd be seeing what's the Chinese place, but they hand out those little toothpicks and you try it and you go, oh, that's good. I'd like to try some of that. Well, that's the exact same idea that we're trying to do with some of our alternative revenue ideas. Perhaps if you're speaking, you might want to give your presentation to a small group of people, and if they like it, maybe that association will pick you up, like the Brand Professionals Association or something like that did for me. Thinking about this when we're talking about the speaking and the writing pieces, I mean, your scholarship is marketing. Those pieces together really can equate to revenue. Also, as far as speaking is concerned, it's best to think about learning a lot about facilitation methods. Get really good at interacting with people and getting them engaged. And look at what the big names are doing. I mean, the people who we see all the time, Anne Emery and Stephanie Berger, Michael Patton, what are they doing? I know, actually, follow Anne Emery if you want to see all the tricks of the trade. She follows them all. She loves it. She's a scholar in just kind of the way that she markets herself. She's unbelievable. You get a chance to talk to her and think about it. Plus, if you ask her questions about it, she'll go on for a long time. She loves this stuff. And with that, I want to say thank you. And just know that we have sessions every week on Thursdays at noon Eastern. And I'd love to chat after this to make sure I know what we're doing next Thursday. I was thinking about doing something on paying yourself first or profit first, but I'd love to talk to you guys about it, and so we can confirm that. I'm going to stop recording and stop sharing.